We go now to retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton, who is joining us in Washington. He's a former member of the Pentagon's Joint Staff. How serious is this charge of desertion, given the fact that there are different levels of desertion charges, Colonel?
Well, Randall, it's a very serious charge. It's probably the most serious charge that you can expect somebody to receive in today's military environment. So, to put it bluntly, Sergeant Bergdahl is in some serious trouble at this point.
What are the implications here? Do you expect Bergdahl to indeed end up serving some jail time?
I think it's a distinct possibility. Of course, as Jamie McIntyre pointed out, there are going to be some instances where, they may look at this as a time served kind of situation because of the number of years that he spent in Haqqani Network captivity. However, I do think that it is at least a possibility that he may serve a couple of years in jail just because of the seriousness of the charges.
Based on your experience, how often does the military accuse someone of desertion?
It is very rare. Now, there are a lot of cases, historically there have been a lot of cases, you're looking at the tens of thousands in World War II and in World War I. There were a few thousand cases as well. In the Civil War there were several tens of thousands. But in modern day military efforts, there is very little desertion in terms of desertion charges that are actually levied. Most of the time, people will levy charges such as AWOL or absent without leave. And that's a much more common charge than the charge actually of desertion.
Now, when Bergdahl was released in that prisoner swap, there was criticism of the Obama administration. Do today's charges build a pretty case? And another question, did the president really have a choice in making that swap if he knew he could get one of America's soldiers back, even though he apparently deserted?
Well, Randall, that's a very difficult question to answer because we don't know the exact background of the negotiations and what was given and taken in those negotiations. But generally speaking, I would say that to exchange 5 high-level Taliban members for one sergeant, in this case, or when he was captured, a private, and one who was captured under somewhat tenuous circumstances, it's probably too high a price to pay, just because the equation just doesn't balance out in terms of the, one side versus the other. So I would say that it was a very high price to pay, and I think that from a strategic standpoint, it also puts us in some degree of danger because we have many other things that could go on in terms of being captured by the enemy or things of that nature. So it becomes very difficult for us to continue with a policy when there is really no set policy. That's the problem. It's no set policy, and it becomes dangerous to go from one extreme to the other in this case.
Colonel Leighton, if you will, I want you to stick with us for a minute because I want to ask you about the latest fight against ISIL. The Pentagon is saying that the U.S. has launched airstrikes against ISIL targets in Tikrit, Iraq. The Defense Department had said until now that it had no role in that offensive there, but military officials say the Iraqi government requested help. The U.S.-led coalition has also been flying surveillance missions over the city to provide intelligence. So, Colonel Leighton, what do you make of this stepped-up U.S. involvement?
Randall, I think what we're seeing here is the fact that the Iraqi offensive to retake Tikrit has stalled, and the Iraqis were trying to get the Iranians to help them, and the Iranians, of course, responded. The problem that you run into is that the Iranians don't have logistical tail to actually go forward and take advantage of the situation on the ground. So what you're seeing here is a situation where the Iranians have in essence run out of steam, the Iraqis have temporarily run out of steam, and so they need the U.S. to help them with this, and that is exactly what is happening now. The U.S. is coming in first with intelligence assets, according to reports, and now apparently they have started striking targets in and around Tikrit, and that shows that there's a new phase in this offensive.
Thank you, Colonel Cedric Leighton, for your insight.